Good morning, everyone. I hope you have been having a good week. We are gonna finish up. Actually, I don't think we can. That's why we have to have the Friday class. We'll try to do as much of lecture four today as possible. Lecture four is not on quiz number two, and quiz number two only includes second half of lecture two as well as lecture three. I posted four announcements. Okay, make sure you read all of them. This one is about the quiz, which I've handed back to you already. For those of you who haven't got it yet, I'll give it to you during the break. If you need extra help, there is the link for booking a tutor. The tutor is available online as well as in person. Her name is Kian. And I'm also available for extra help if you need to see me, right? Before class, though, okay? Like I said, after class, I got to go rush to another class, so I can't stay. But before class, I'm usually here a little bit before 8, right? So if you need help with anything, just send me an email and we will set up an appointment. This is about the lecture 3 stuff. You know, there's the recording archive if you need to watch the class again, class notes and study guide. As you know from now, by now, if you know the questions on the quiz, a lot of them are taken from the study guide, so you should definitely use that as a key studying tool. All right. No class next Monday because of the Truth and Reconciliation Day. Instead, we will have a class on Friday, 8:30, this Friday, 8:30. And you can join just by clicking on the link here. Okay? The link is right in the announcement.
You can watch it later after too.
Yeah, you can watch it later as well. All right. Okay, let's focus, guys. I know it's very exciting, seeing the quiz and all. But this is how you join the Zoom class, okay? All right, remember, just go to the announcement and then click on the link. All right, if you have not installed Zoom on your devices yet, maybe you want to click on the link like today so that you can get the software installed and then you'll be there on time. If you can attend in real time, please do. You don't have to turn on your camera or anything. So even if you are like driving, no, don't go to Casper driving. Even if you're like on transit or something, like going to Progress or something, you can just turn it on your phone, okay? Like you don't have to participate or anything. Like you can just listen in and then watch it later on, okay? There is the quiz 2 information. It's going to be done online. So originally I put it on next Wednesday, right? But then I realized like you guys have a full day already, like with my class in the morning and math in the afternoon. Like I think you might not have enough time to do it. So I push it back to Friday. And that way you have more time to prepare. And on the Friday, you will have access to it again from 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. Okay, so it's like a whole day. It's I think that works out to be a little bit better. You do have a link here to access the quiz. Okay, if you click on it now, nothing's happened because it's outside of the availability window. But on the day of the quiz next Friday, I'll remind you again. You can click on that and it will take you directly to it. You do have to install the lockdown browser. Okay, so if you haven't done that already, you should use the self quiz as a mock, okay, to install the lockdown browser and to see what it's like to do an assessment online, okay? You don't want to be doing the online assessment for the first time when you're doing the actual quiz because things can get a little bit, confused and overwhelming. So just practice ahead of time first. There is a review video. Okay, I checked the quiz one review video. It was funny. Nobody watched anything at all for a while. And then there's a couple of people who watched it a couple of days before. But the night before, my God, it exploded. Okay, like you see a big spike. So I hope it helped. Here is the good second quiz. Yeah, so that's it. That's all the announcement. Please read through them. They are important for you. All right, today I will go through lecture 4. It's a relatively easier lesson, okay? The most difficult one is going to be number 5, lecture 5, all right? So brace yourself for that. On Monday, I did the fluid mosaic model for you. Hopefully you still have the drawing in your binder or somewhere. If you do, please take it out, leave it next to you, because we're going to be referring to some of these things as we progress through the lesson. Okay, so here is a thing, a good question to think about. How would the percent of saturated, unsaturated fat, as well as cholesterol content of a cell membrane be different for a plant that's growing in a cold environment versus a plant that is growing in a hot environment? So let's write that down. Okay, let's do this. Okay. My computer just kind of died this morning, half an hour ago. The blue screen of death. Somehow it came back on. So hopefully it's going to be okay for the duration of our lesson. And if not, we'll have to go old school and do it on the board. So this is cold environment. This is hot environment. And we're going to have adaptation. Percent of saturated phospholipid. All right, so these are the guys with the straight tail. When I say saturated FA fatty acids, I'm talking about the fatty acids on the phospholipid, right? Because that's the major component of the cell membrane. We also have percent unsaturated fatty acid. All right, so let's think about a plant that's living in a cold environment. If it's really cold, do you expect the cell membrane to become solid easier or to become liquid easier? Solid, right? Yeah. Like if you put water into the freezer, it tends to become more solid, right? Okay. So we do not want the cell membrane to be solid. If it's solid like the wall, nothing goes through. Basically, the cell will die. So the adaptation that we need for the plant to survive in a cold environment is actually to increase fluidity. You do not want it to freeze so easily. So you want to make it more liquid. Do you understand that? Right? It's like the antifreeze in your windshield fluid. You spray that stuff on when it's -20. You don't want it to freeze. You want it to be more liquid. Okay? And so you have to think about whether you need more saturated or unsaturated fatty acid in order for it to be more fluid. Now, don't tell me you guys work on it, right, with each other for, I don't know, like a minute or something, and then we'll take it up, okay? Similarly, for a hot environment, you want to reduce the fluidity because if it's hot, it tends to melt, right? Yeah, we don't want it to melt. We want it to stay semi-solid. Right? So you need to reduce the fluidity. So please fill this in. All you need to write down is like, do you need more of it or less of it? Okay, higher percentage or lower percentage. I'll give you about a minute or so, and then we will take it out. Okay.
for all of it? Or just-
Yeah, do all of them. Okay, so what is it? If you want it to be more fluid, thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, do you want more saturated or less saturated? Show me what you think. More, thumbs up, less, thumbs down. No? Okay, yeah, most of you got it right. If you want it to be more fluid, you don't want too much of this. Remember, saturated fatty acids are solid, right? At room temperature. So if you want it to be more fluid, you want less of these things. Okay? And by the same token, if you want it to be more fluid, you would need to have more unsaturated fatty acid. What about cholesterol? What does it say on the note? We wrote it down. I wrote it down in orange. I don't know what color you wrote it in. If you want it to be more fluid, do you want more cholesterol or less cholesterol? You missed that class. Do you guys remember? More cholesterol to be more fluid or less cholesterol? Okay. Anyone else? You guys have the notes from last class, like the last 10 minutes of last class? Or did you guys all pack your bags already? All right. Let me show you again. Okay, we roll it down. Okay. More cholesterol equals more fluid. Okay, because the cholesterol are getting in between the phospholipids. They kind of prevent the phospholipids from packing together. Right? They're in the way. Okay, so if you want it to be more fluid, then you need to have more cholesterol. Okay, and then it would be the opposite for the other situation. Okay. So make sure you keep up with the, the materials. It's going to get, more heavier workload from now on, right? Not just in my course, but, other things as well. Right? Math is no longer going to be just adding, subtracting. You're going to learn, algebras and stuff like that soon. So make sure you stay on top of things. Okay. We also talk about how there are different membrane proteins in the cell membrane, and those membrane proteins actually have different functions. We are going to be looking at 6 different functions. Just to recap, there are 2 kinds of membrane proteins that we can have. We have those that can go through the cell membrane completely, going from one side to the other. We call them integral proteins. On the other hand, it might just be attached on either the outside layer or the inside layer. We call those peripheral proteins. Okay, so the name is only based on how it attached to the membrane. Like, does it go through or not? If it does go through, it's integral. If it's just attaching to either outside or inside, and you can see it doesn't even have to attach onto the membrane directly. It could attach to one of these other integral proteins. Then we call them peripheral proteins. Okay, peripheral, like your peripheral vision, right? Like it's like your side vision. So peripheral means side. It's a protein that's stuck on the side. Okay. So 6 functions, all right? For the test, which is going to happen later for the test, you should know at least 3 or 4 of these functions by heart, okay? You don't have to memorize all of them, but you should remember at least 3 or 4 of them, okay? For the test. So first one, attachment to cytoskeleton. I know we didn't spend too much time talking about cytoskeleton. In fact, we kind of skipped over it. But to keep it simple, cytoskeleton are basically structures that are found within the cell to help reinforce its shape. Okay, so think of them as like support beams. Now, with all supporting material, there has to be something to attach them onto. Okay, like if you put a pole onto the ground, you need to have like a foundation to support it, right? So basically, the membrane proteins are what's acting as support for these cytoskeleton. Okay? You can think of this is the cell membrane, and you don't have to draw this, you can watch it. This is the inside, the cytoplasm. And you have all these supporting beams. Oops. Let's try that again. You have all these supporting materials that reinforce the shape of the membrane. But when it gets to the membrane, it needs to like get attached to something. Right? It needs to attach to something. So these are the membrane proteins. Okay? These are the membrane proteins. They provide anchorage points for these things to stick to them. So these red cells are able to maintain this particular shape because of these membrane proteins. Okay. In addition, this is like more zoomed out now. This is outside of a cell. In fact, these are individual cells here. And all these fibers that you see, these are what we call extracellular matrix. Okay. Between one cell and another cell, it's not an empty space. Okay, it's not like the space between you and I, like there's like, you know, nothing, right? It's actually filled with a lot of fibers, and for the cells to kind of cling on to these fibers, cling on to these extracellular matrices, again, they need to use the membrane proteins. Okay, so that's the first function. The second function is cell signaling. Your body communicates with different cells in different parts using signaling molecules, such as hormones. Okay? There are signaling molecules that are not hormones, but hormone is a common example. So over here, these are signaling molecules. E.g., some kind of hormone. And it will bind to a membrane protein that's acting as a receptor. Different signaling molecule has different receptor. Okay. The orange signaling molecule will have an orange receptor. The blue ones will have a blue receptor. Okay, and they will not be able to bind to a different one. Okay, so in order for a cell to respond to a hormone, they need to have a specific receptor. Okay, when your body releases hormones, all the cells are exposed to it, but only those with the right receptor will respond. Okay, so the signaling molecule does not go into the cell. It will bind to the receptor, and in turns, it will cause a series of changes inside the cell. It will change the behavior of the cell, depending on what kind of signaling molecule we're talking about. I'll give you an example. Adrenaline. Okay? Adrenaline has another name. It's called epinephrine. Okay? They mean the exact same thing. Does anybody know where your kidneys are? Show me where your kidneys are. Is it at the front? Yeah, at the back, right? Right here, right? Okay, so this is your kidney. On top of your kidneys, on top of each kidney, there is a triangular organ. Okay, it's like wearing a hat. That's where the adrenaline are released. Okay, they're released from the adrenal glands. Okay, so another name for adrenaline is epinephrine, right? Do you guys know what kids have to carry with them if they have severe allergies? What kind of pen do they have to carry? EpiPen, right? Okay. The epi in the EpiPen is epinephrine. Okay, it's the adrenaline. Right. So what do we use adrenaline for? Well, adrenaline is typically released when you are excited, when you are in danger, or when you are stressed out. Okay. And in this particular example, the person is getting ready for a race, right? So, he might warm himself up, he might psych himself up. And in the process, he's going to release all these adrenaline in his body. Okay. And so the adrenaline in this case will bind to a receptor protein, which is on the cell membrane. And that will lead to a series of chemical reactions that ultimately result in the hydrolysis of glycogen. You might remember glycogen is the storage form of energy, right? In muscle, in liver. And if you're getting ready for a race, of course, you want to break down the glycogen so that you have more glucose to burn to sustain the race. Does it make sense? Okay. So the signaling molecule will bind to a receptor which relays the signal inside the cell. Okay. But the signaling molecule never actually entered the cell. Okay. Whenever I talk about this, it reminds me of growing up during Halloween. Okay. My parents don't like Halloween. I don't know why. Something about giving out free candies or like, this shouldn't be, okay? So they're anti-Halloween. And every year, they would be like, okay, turn off all the lights and pretend no one's home, right? But people still ring the bell, right? So whenever they ring the bell, my mom would be like, okay, go hide in your basement, okay? Don't make a sound, and then you can come out when they're gone, right? So that story reminds me of the situation, okay? The adrenaline are like the kids ringing the doorbell. The kids never came in the house, but they are able to cause all these activities, all these commotions inside the house by pressing on the doorbell, right? So that's what's happening here. The signaling molecule use the receptor to relay the changes. That's going to cause the cell to behave differently. Okay? Your brain, your neurons also communicate in similar manner. Do you guys know what the name of the happy hormone is called? Like if you eat a cookie and it makes you feel good, what hormone is released in the brain? Starts with a D. Dopamine, that's right. Okay, dopamine, right? That's a happy hormone, right? And so when the neuron releases the dopamine will bind to a receptor and it causes change in activity in the brain cells, which ultimately makes you feel good. Okay, so more on that next semester when we learn the nervous system. Okay, in case I've lost you, we are talking about the functions of membrane proteins. First one is attachment to cytoskeleton. Number 2 is cell signaling. Okay. Number 3 is enzymatic activity. You might remember enzymes are proteins that speeds up chemical reactions. Another word for speeding up is catalyze. Okay. So a lot of times we don't just do a single reaction in the body and get what we want. Okay? In order to produce certain kinds of molecules, you actually have to do multiple reactions one after the other. Okay? So it's not uncommon to have, let's say, start with this orange ball here, and then we got to go through a series of reactions before we get to the end product that we need. And in these situations, you would need to have multiple enzymes for each of the reaction. So enzyme 1 is going to convert the circle into triangle, and immediately it can be used by enzyme 2 to do the next reaction, and so on and so forth. So it makes more sense to put all these related enzymes close to each other on the membrane so you can perform the reactions quickly and efficiently, rather than having the enzymes all over the cytoplasm, right? It would take time to get to the right place, right? And so by putting the enzymes next to each other, you can do it more efficiently, you can do it faster. It's the same reason why you would put all the cooking stuff in the kitchen, okay? So when you use it, chopping board's right here, the knives is here, right? You can get to the tools quickly. You're not gonna leave your, pans in the, like the cooking pans in the bathroom or something, right? Like you will have to run and get it every time you need to use it. So for the same reason, we don't want the enzymes to be all over the place. We put it all nicely in the membrane, and then you can do the reaction quickly. Does that make sense? Number 4, intercellular junction. In many places of the body, you want the cells to be glued to each other. You don't want there to be any gaps between the cells because things would start to leak all over the place, right? For example, in your intestinal tract, you want the cells to form a tight seal so that food's not going to leak out of your intestine. Same thing with your blood vessels, right? And even your skin, right? We don't want things to be oozing all over the place. So how do you lock the cells together? How do you lock adjacent cells together? Well, that's where membrane proteins comes into play. You can see there's a cell here, there's a cell here, and these membrane proteins basically hook them onto each other. They staple them together, and it forms these things called junctions, which again prevent uncontrolled movement of materials between the cells. So we need to have these tight junctions. So attachment to cytoskeleton, cell signaling, enzymatic activity, intercellular junction. And the next one is cell-cell recognition. If you have the picture we drew last time, you can see we had some sugar that are stuck on the proteins, and we have some sugar that are stuck on the lipids. We call them glycoproteins and glycolipids. Does anybody know their blood type and want to share? You can make it up. I would never know. Anybody know their blood type? Nobody knows their blood type?
No.
Yeah, what is it? O positive. Okay, anyone else? Yeah. B positive. Okay, so that's good, right? So what does that actually mean? Well, if you are B positive, it means you actually have the glycoprotein B on the surface of your red cell. Okay, if you're positive, it means you have a protein called the rhesus protein on the surface of your cell. So everybody is going to have different glycoproteins and glycolipids that are on the surface of all your cells, which are used as identifier for your immune system. Okay? That's how they tell what belongs to the body and what does not. It's the same thing as me wearing this tag, okay? Although I saw some of you wearing it. Did they start handing out the lanyard now for students as well? It used to be only faculty get these things. So if you walk down the hall and you see someone with a badge and you're like, oh, that's a teacher. Like I know right away because of the ID tag, right? So in the same way, if the glycoproteins and the glycolipids look different from what you have in the body, then your cells know to attack that bacteria or that virus or whatever the case happens to be. Okay, so no two individuals are going to have the same ID tags unless you have an identical twin. But otherwise, you're not going to find someone that's different. Okay, of course, all these ID tags are encoded within the DNA. Okay, so and of course, we all have different DNA. Speaking of which, you and I are not related. I hope we're not. I know we're not. But what percent of our DNA are the same? What do you think? If you look at all your DNA and you look at all of my DNA, what percent do you think are identical? Usually people get this way off. But let's see. Give me some numbers, guys. 40%, okay? Anyone? Higher, lower? Between your DNA and mine, we check every ACTGs. What percent of it would be the same? 90. Okay, anyone else? We have 40, we have 90. This can be a multiple choice question. Give me some numbers. What do you think? 2%. Okay, anyone else? 60%. Some people say 0%. I don't want anything to do with you. We are 99.9% identical, you and I, okay? And for that matter, you and anyone else on this planet. is 99.9% identical on a DNA level, okay? That 0.01% difference is what accounts for how we look differently, but also on a cellular level accounts for how we have different ID tags. But people are like, how is that possible? Like, we look so different, but we are both humans, right? So all humans are going to have the same core genetic material that is needed to build a human, like 2 arms, eyes where they're supposed to be, and so on and so forth. Okay. And how about us and chimpanzee? Okay, chimpanzees are also primate like us. What percent do you think are identical between humans and chimpanzees? 90%? Yeah. Higher, lower, anyone else? Yeah, you'd be surprised. Okay, we are about 96% similar to the chimpanzee. Okay, so those are fun things to kind of know. Anyways, so over here we have a white blood cells, white blood cell right here. The white blood cells, they help you defend the body, and it's currently trying to attack this yellow cell, right? Because it has different ID tags. Yeah. So we'll talk about this ID tag business in much more detail next semester when we learn the immune system. Yeah, like I don't know if I'll be teaching you guys, but like, whoever is going to be teaching you guys, maybe me, maybe someone else, you will be learning about this. And finally, we have the last function, which is transport. Okay? And that's kind of like the name of the lecture, right? Of this particular lecture. It's to help move things across the cell membrane, right? So a lot of times the molecules may be too big. They won't be able to cross the cell membrane on their own. Sometimes the molecules may be charged or polar, and they're not able to cross on their own. And as such, they will need the help of a membrane protein. In this picture, the membrane protein is like one of those revolving door, okay? Like at the mall or something. Like you go in and then you push the door and then you end up inside the building. And that's what the proteins are. The molecule gets in and then, push the door and then it goes in. So those are the 6 functions, okay? Remember, you need to memorize at least 4 of them for the test, okay? The test. Not the quiz. The quiz is not going to have lecture 4. The test will, though. Okay. Test is going to be happening. I forgot, in a couple of weeks. Okay, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yeah, right before the reading week. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right, that's a very long question. Let's see if you remember the answer. We wrote it down last week as well, okay? Look at the notes. No. Yes. Yes. Right. Anyone else? Yes, Fatima, that's right. Not quite. All right, let's take it up. We are talking about the phospholipids in the membrane. And we're looking for the true statement, okay? So do they freely depart from the membrane and dissolve in the surrounding solution? No, because if that's what happened, then you will slowly dissolve the entire membrane, right? And the cell will be dead. They occur in an uninterrupted bilayer with membrane proteins restricted to the surface of the membrane. We know that's not true because some membrane goes all the way through, right? And some proteins go all the way through, and some proteins are only on the inside, right? So they're not restricted on the outside. They have hydrophilic tails in the interior of the membrane. The tails are not hydrophilic, are they? Tails are hydrophobic, right? They can move laterally along the plane of the membrane. That's the true one. Remember I showed you a picture of the ball pits? I'm saying that the balls can bob back and forth, no problem, right? But they do not flip to the other side, right? So frequent flipping is not. Okay. Now, also, if you did not study the concept check questions when you were preparing for quiz 1, you should do that for quiz 2, right? Because again, some of I told you that question was going to be on the what was it? The inductive reasoning, right? Okay. A lot of you still got it wrong. Okay. I'm not lying. When I tell you something is on the quiz, it will be on the quiz. Okay. So just mark down what I say during class, and hopefully it will help you a little bit. Okay, this one should be easy. Let's go. Good, good. And we learned 6 functions. Which one is not? Good. Yes. Correct. Okay, most people got it, right? Protection from bursting. Right? None of the membrane proteins are going to protect the cell from bursting. Okay, next we're going to talk about cellular energy. Cellular energy. So let me just copy this diagram. If you have the study guide with you, then this is in the study guide. If you don't have it, that's okay. You can just draw a few boxes on the page and follow along. So the word metabolism refers to the reactions that are going on inside the body. Metabolism, right? So some people have high metabolism, the reactions are going fast. Some people have lower metabolism. The reactions might be going a little bit slower. And generally, we can separate the metabolism into 2 kinds, okay? Where you would break things down and where you would build things up. So here, these things represent macromolecules from the food we eat. And what kind of macromolecules do we eat? Sure. Just give me the broad categories, guys. Proteins, yes, thank you. What is it, Henson? What you say? Carbohydrates, and you have another one, Rachel? Carbohydrate, yeah. And one more, please. Lipids, that's right, lipids. Those are the main ones, right? We don't deliberately eat nucleic acid. It's just, part of every living thing. So whenever you eat something that's alive, it's going to have nucleic acid. So I'm not going to put that there. But these are the macromolecules from the food that we eat. And what's going to happen once it goes into your body is you will break them down, absorb them. And at the molecular level, you will convert them into building blocks, okay, for biosynthesis. Biosynthesis just means to create some biomolecules in the body. So what kind of building blocks do we have? Well, we should know them from lecture 2. Right? If you break down the proteins, eventually you will get amino acids. If you break down the carbohydrates, you might get things like glucose, fructose. And for the lipids, you might get some fatty acids, right? So these are the building blocks that we will get from digesting our food. So these chemical processes that will break down the food into its building blocks, it's called catabolism. or catabolic reaction. The word catabolism has a prefix kata, which is the same prefix as catastrophe. In a catastrophe, everything breaks, right? So catabolism, things break down. That's how you can remember it.
Okay.
Yeah, the catastrophe. Yeah. So in the previous lessons, I told you all reactions will need to have some energy before it can happen, right? It's in the protein lesson. But for catabolism, you actually end up releasing more energy than you supply. Right? So you're going to have quite a bit of energy being released. But our body is not very efficient in converting food into energy. If you think about like a old light bulb, like the really original kind that we all have, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago, the incandescent light bulb with a filament inside, you turn it on for like even 10 minutes, you touch it, it's like hot, right? Okay. So these things are only 10% efficient. Right? That means 90% of the electricity gets converted into heat, right? So not very efficient. And then there are the new ones that look like these. Right? These are do you guys know what they're called? It's kind of like these ones, right? The fluorescent, right? Fluorescent light. Okay. Yeah. And those are 85% efficient. I mean, obviously you don't have to memorize these numbers. I'm just trying to show you, right? And now most people have these ones now. Okay, what do we call these bulbs? The LEDs. Okay? LEDs are like over 90% efficient. That's why you touch an LED light bulb, it's not hot to the touch, right? It might be warm if you leave it up for a long time, but it's quite good at converting electricity into light. So what do you think the efficiency of the human body is? How good are we at converting food into energy? Are we like the incandescent light bulb? Are we like the fluorescent light bulb? Or are we like LED? What percent efficiency? What is it? 85%? Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? I asked these questions not expecting like this to have real answer, but like it's just to keep you guys engaged and awake, right? So just throw me some. What is it? 10%. Okay. So yeah, we're somewhere in between. If we take the average, I guess we are about 25% efficient. Okay. We're about 25% efficient in converting our food into energy. So what happens to the rest of the energy? It gets converted into heat. Okay, heat. Just like the light bulb. If you touch the light bulb, it's going to be hot, right? Okay. But it's good. It's good that we generate heat after we eat food, because after all, we need to maintain a constant body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius, right? Okay. So we need to have some way to keep ourselves warm. And the byproduct from catabolism will do just that. Okay. So human body is about 25% efficient. Okay, so what are you going to do with all these building blocks? All right. Well, some of them you can burn and create more fuel, but in other cases, you're going to actually use them to build macromolecules that are needed in the body. So these are molecules needed in the body. So we need to make proteins that we need. Fingernails are proteins, right? Hormones are proteins. Right? All these proteins we need to build from the amino acid. Okay. So listen, right? Like if you need to, let's say, make fingernails, okay? we don't eat fingernails and then, end up having new fingernails. What we do instead is we eat meat, right? Or we eat soy product, which contains the proteins. The proteins get broken down into building blocks, and then the building blocks are used to make the fingernails, right? And so that's why we have to consume the food so that we have both the raw materials and the energy to build the things that we need. Okay. And protein is just an example. Right? We also need other things. Right? We might need like glycogen. We might need phospholipids. So all these things that we build comes from the many building blocks that we have from digesting our food. And the process of building these molecules, we call them anabolism. Anabolism, okay? Or anabolic reaction. Okay. And these reactions need to have more energy supplied to them. So the key takeaway from this diagram is that catabolic reactions, metabolism, supply both the building materials as well as the energy that are necessary to build things in the body. That's why we need to keep on eating. If we don't eat and we don't have enough energy, we don't have raw material to do the things that we need to keep us alive. Now, one last thing before we move on, the energy that is being released from the reactions, we will actually capture them. Captured by ATP. Okay. So I'll tell you more about ATP in a bit, but ATP equals to, you can think of them as like a battery, rechargeable battery. Okay. So we have batteries that we keep maybe at home, and then we can use it for, I don't know, like flashlight or other things. I don't know what you need them for. Okay, but like if you need some electricity, you would need to get the battery, right? Okay, so same thing for the body. The body, usable form of energy for the body, right? The batteries for your cell, they are called ATP. Any questions so far? All right. So let's go back to here. This is basically what I told you. You can read it later. We did this diagram. And this slide tells you one of the key catabolic reactions that are happening in the body is cellular respiration. Right? We have been talking about this for quite some time now. And every time we mention this, I write the equation for you. So I'm going to write it out again. It's something that you should memorize because in lecture 5, we will talk a lot about this thing. The ingredients, the reactants for the reaction would be glucose and oxygen. And in the process, you will generate water and carbon dioxide. But more importantly, this reaction releases a lot of energy, all of which will be used, will be captured by ATP. A total of 36 ATPs are possible for every glucose that you burn. Every time you break down a glucose into carbon dioxide, you can charge up 36 ATP. Part of this reaction happens in the cytoplasm, right here. Part of it happens in the mitochondria. Don't worry about this diagram for now. We will learn all of the glory details in lecture 5. So let's take a look at the relationship between the different forms of, this battery molecule. So ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate phosphate. I'm never going to ask you, to write out the full name. But the key thing here is that it is a triphosphate. So tri means three, right? Triphosphate. The molecule has an adenine. It's like the adenine in DNA. There's a ribose sugar, and it's attached to 3-phosphate. So this is the fully charged version. Okay? It's a charged battery. And when you need to use the molecule, when you need to use the energy in the ATP, you have to break off a P. Okay? So 3-phosphate, you break one off, and then the energy will be released. And you can use the energy for different things. I'll show you some examples in a bit. But after you break off the P, then it becomes ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate. Did you guys learn naming compounds in chemistry yet? No, no, yeah, some nodding, no. The different prefix, mono, di, tri. Yeah, that's what this is, right? Okay, di means two. So the diphosphate is 2-phosphate. And this is like drained battery. Drained battery, if you would. And then to recharge the ADP, you would need to get the energy from breaking down the food, right? Okay, the catabolism, creating energy and heat. So you can recharge it, you can put the P back on, and then it will be ATP again. Right? So every day, 24/7, the ATPs are being used and being recharged, used, recharged. On and on it goes. Okay, just like our cell phones, right? We charge them, we use them, we charge them, we use them. Is that okay? Okay, one more slide. What do we use the ATP for? A lot of things. Okay? We can use it for mechanical work, which basically is a fancy way of saying movements. So we talk about like flagellum. This is a unicellular organism that has 2 tails. And to beat the tails, you need ATP. Okay. To move your muscles, you need ATP. For the heart to beat, you need ATP. All these movements, it's called mechanical work. Transport work, to move things across the cell membrane, that needs ATP in some cases. Reactions also needs energy, and that can be supplied by ATP. The key takeaway from this picture is that regardless of what kind of work you're doing in the cell, when you use an ATP, you break off the P, and then it becomes ADP plus a free phosphate. Okay, but then you can recharge it, right? I keep on telling you, as long as you eat, when you break down the food, the energy from the food can put the P back on, and then it's going to be fully charged again. So it goes back and forth all day. Okay. All right. I'll leave that on. You can think about it. But I do want to let you choose your own group, okay? For your lab. Okay, the lab is coming up. Let me just double check. I don't think it's next week. Next week there's no class on Monday, but it will be the following Monday, which will be the 7th. Okay, October 7th. Okay. So like I said, we're not going to be handling anything dangerous, but maybe don't wear white or wear old clothing, because we are doing the beetroot lab, and the juice, once it stains on you, it's really hard to get off. Okay, so don't wear whites and don't wear nice clothing. But other than that, we're not handling anything dangerous. 3 to 4 people per group. And so I have a sign up sheet here for you. I see that. Let me pause the recording first. I see. You can try this question yourself later. You can write down the answers. Okay, answer is B and C. B and C. Okay. Just write them down somewhere secretly, and then do it again when you forget it's B and C. Okay, let's go through this. Next, we're gonna talk about the different types of transport, beginning with some simple examples. These are red blood cells, and these are normal looking ones. And these are not very happy. So I'll show you what kind of conditions will cause the red cells to be like these. But first, let's talk about the concept of diffusion. Okay? Diffusion is the movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Concentration is something that you will learn more about in chemistry later. But generally, if you think about a glass of water and you add a lot of salt or sugar to it, then it's really concentrated, okay? Whereas if you have a glass and you just add a pinch of salt, then it's less concentrated, okay? So things naturally, if there's no barrier between two places, they will naturally go from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. If you put food coloring into a beaker, it will slowly spread out until the whole thing becomes blue, right? And so that's something that will occur spontaneously. You don't need to do anything for it to happen. Yeah, I mean, you can do something to make it happen faster. You can swirl the beaker, but on its own, it will occur. It's not restricted to liquid stuff. I can spray like Febreze up here, like the air freshener, and then you'll be able to smell it at the back eventually. Okay, they diffuse out on their own. So molecule move down their concentration gradient. A concentration gradient is basically a difference in concentration between two areas. All right, so here is high concentration. We use square bracket to represent concentration, okay? Here's low concentration. It just spreads out on its own. Square bracket, concentration. Okay, it's the official symbol, okay? It's not something I make up.
What did you say again? The bracket jar.
Concentration, it means concentration. Square bracket equals concentration. There are different factors that affects the rate of diffusion. Right? Certain factors will cause the rate to happen faster, others slower. For example, size. Smaller molecules are able to move faster. So if you have like O2 here, only with 2 atoms, the rate of diffusion of oxygen is going to be faster than something that's bigger, like the glucose here. If it's small, it's able to spread out faster. You ever try to catch a fly? It's very hard, right? They go very, very fast. They are much smaller than us. Temperature. The higher the temperature, the faster the diffusion can happen. Right? If you sometimes on a hot summer day and you are walking in the neighborhood on garbage collection day, you might smell the garbage, right? Okay. But that doesn't really, it's not very strong in winter. Right? That's because when it's hot, the smell can diffuse faster. Okay. Same thing. If you add food coloring into a hot glass of water, it's going to spread out faster than if you add it to a cold one. So size, temperature. The next one is called the steepness of concentration gradient. 2 slides ago, I told you concentration gradient is basically the difference in concentration between two areas. Okay? So I'm making these numbers up. Let's say over here, the concentration is 100%, and over here is 0% because nothing, right? So the difference is really big, which means these molecules will go over quickly. Okay. Just think of like standing in a really crowded room. As soon as they open a door and there's like an empty space into another room, people would go there quickly, right? In this picture, let's say this is 80% concentration and this is 20% concentration. There is still a concentration gradient. There is still a difference between the two areas, but it's not as big of a difference, right? In the first case, the difference is 100, and the second case, the difference is 60. So they will still move over, but it's not going to be happening as quickly. Okay, so the steepness, like how much of a difference are we talking about, will determine how fast the rate of diffusion occurs. The bigger the difference, the faster. So size, temperature, steepness of concentration gradient, and the last factor that we will talk about that affects the rate of diffusion is the charge. Okay. So if we look at the molecules here, they are all positively charged. Okay. So we have a high concentration here, low concentration over there. Even without the charge, they're going to go over there, right? But with the charge, they actually will go over there faster. That's because like charges repel each other. Right? If you put two positively charged things close to each other, they want to get away from each other as far away as possible. Okay? It's like putting the magnets, the north and the north together, they repel, right? So because like charges repel each other, this will help them spread out faster. Okay? Like charges repel. If you have a mix of positive and negative together, though, then it will slow the diffusion because now the positive and negative are attracted to each other, right? All right. The next part is very important. Please pay close attention. I will explain this in the note. Okay. Huh? Uh-huh. Okay, so we're going to talk about osmosis. Osmosis is basically diffusion of water. Okay, let's draw this together. They usually draw it like this in textbook, okay? That's the only reason I draw the U. Now I'm gonna put a membrane at the bottom here. So this membrane is selectively permeable, okay? Only water can pass through. This is an important point to remember when I explain things to you. Nothing gets through this except for water. Okay? We have some gaps here just big enough for the water to go through. Nothing else. Okay? They do have these things in real life. Like when people do dialysis for like their kidneys, they would have these membranes where only certain things can pass through and not others. Okay, I'm gonna fill this guy up with some water. And we're gonna go all the way up to that level. Hopefully you bring some color to class. Lots of coloring next semester, by the way, okay? So you know, buy yourself a nice pack of markers or whatnot. Okay, we just fill it up with water, and we're gonna add some salt to the left side, maybe. Okay, we're gonna add some salt. Okay, they don't have to be salt, they could be like other stuff, sugar, proteins, whatever. I'm gonna add some to the right side as well, but not as much. So these are solute, such as salt. Okay, listen. I want everybody to answer. Can the salt move through the membrane? No, that's right. Only water can move. Right? Which side has higher concentration? The left or the right? Which side has higher concentration? Left or right?
Left.
Left. Very good. I'm gonna write it down for you. High concentration because we put more salt in it, right? And it's the same amount of water. And this is low concentration. Okay, so this is the all-important question. You have to understand this for the next 20 minutes to make sense to you. Right? So let's see. What do you think? If you create this tube situation and then you let it sit, which way will the water move? Show me your answer. Just one answer. Okay. So there A, B, or C. Show me, please. Okay. You don't have to say it. You just show me, okay? Okay. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Well, most people got it wrong, which is fine. That's usually what happens. What's the water in this picture? In this picture, which part is the water?
The blue.
The blue, right? Okay.
So
What you guys might be thinking, and I'm just guessing here, you are thinking, oh, high concentration to low concentration, right? Okay. But no, because the membrane will not let the red circles move. The red circles want to move, you're right. The red one wants to go to the right because it's high to low, but the membrane blocks them, right? So the only thing that can move is the water. And the water is going to try to move to the side that will help balance out the concentration. Okay? So visualize this with me. Okay? Okay. Imagine you take a spoon, you scoop up some salt from the kitchen, and then you put it in your mouth and you hold it there. Okay, don't swallow, just hold it there. Okay, visualize this. Okay. About 30 minutes later, what's gonna happen? You're gonna drool all over the place, right? Lots of saliva, right? Can you visualize this? If not, please try it during your lunch break. Okay, put it in and hold it there, and then it sucks out all the water. That's an example of osmosis. The salt is drawing the fluid, the water towards itself, right? So in this situation, because we have more salt on the left side, it's literally sucking the water towards itself. Do you understand that? Okay? It's pulling the water towards itself. So this is the correct answer. As water moves to the left side is diluted. Okay? Think about what that means. If you have a drink that's too sweet, right, you might add more water to it to dilute it, right? To make it less sweet. Right? So as the water moves to the left, the volume is going to go up. The red dots will not change, but the volume will change. Okay, so as water moves to the left side is diluted and the water level goes up. And the right side becomes more concentrated. Okay, because now the volume goes down. I don't know if you guys cook, but if you do, when you make a sauce, you need to heat it up for some time to evaporate the water, the liquid. And then the sauce will reduce. It will become more concentrated. Okay. So this will keep on happening until the concentration are balanced out between the two sides. Okay. This continues until the concentration are equal on both sides. That's basically osmosis. It's the movement of water across a selectively permeable membrane. Any questions? The key takeaway here is water will always move towards the side that has more concentration. All right. Next note is the last thing we're going to do before we go home. We have something called tonicity. Okay, this is important, okay? For the test. I mean, everything is important, but this is especially important. So for tonicity, it is the ability for a solution. Okay, a solution is what you get when you dissolve solute in solvent, right? The ability for a solution to change the volume of a cell. By affecting water movement. Okay, if this is your paper, we're going to be drawing 3 cases. So you should divide the paper into top, middle, bottom. Okay, so case 1, case 2, case 3. We will have some drawing here. We'll have some drawing here on the right, and then we will have explanation in the middle, okay? All right, so this one, you can draw it like this, as opposed to sideways. All right, just so that you don't run out of space, okay? Start a new page. Okay, I see a lot of you like try to square, fit all these things, cram it into the bottom of the PowerPoint slide. Don't do that, okay? If you need paper, I don't have any. Ask your ask your classmates, okay? So we will have case number one. Case number one is called isotonic solution. Isotonic solution. We'll draw the before and after. Excuse me. I think it ran down the wrong tube. So this is a beaker. And let's make it bigger. Beaker is just like a glass container, right? And we're going to put an animal cell over here. And in the other beaker, we will put a plant cell. The plant cell is going to look a little bit different from the animal cell. It's going to be a little bit more rectangular in shape. So in an isotonic solution, the concentration of solute is the same on the inside as it is outside. These dots here, those are the solutes, okay? You can think of them as salt. So for isotonic solution, the concentration of the solution is equal to the concentration of, what do we call the inside of a cell? What is it? The inside of the cell, all the liquidy stuff? Not quite. Cytoplasm, that's right. Okay. So same concentration outside and inside. If the concentrations are the same, if the amount of dots are the same inside and outside, which way will water tend to move? Into the cell or out of the cell? Same concentration. Which way will water tend to move? Into? Anyone else? Well, if it's the same, then you would have the same amount of water moving in as they would be moving out. Because it's the same, right? There is no preference as to where the water is going to go. It's the same on both sides, right? It's already balanced. So it's not going to be drawn to one side versus the other. Right? So over here, the rate of water going into the cell is going to be equal to the rate of water leaving the cell. Okay? It's not that there is no movement of water, but the rate at which they are coming in are the same as the rate at which they are leaving. So no net movement. No net movement. And whatever's coming in is going to be canceled by whatever's leaving. One way to visualize this is if you imagine you have a bucket and then you have a tap. And you're going to turn on the tap. Turn on the tap. So water is going to be coming in. But we're gonna poke a hole at the bottom. And so the water is going to be leaking out, right? Water's coming in, water's going out. But if they're coming in at the same rate as it is leaking out of the bucket, what's going to happen to the water level? Is it going to go up, go down, or stay the same? Stay the same, right? So if the rate at which water is coming into the cell is equal to the rate that it's leaving, then there is no change in the volume. No change in volume, in cell volume. Okay. So what's going to happen after? Nothing is going to happen. Okay? Animal cell will stay as is. And the plant cell will stay as is. Okay? Nothing happens. The animal cell will be happy. The plant cell, they're okay. They're not happy, but they're not like, dying. They're just like, meh, I'll live. Okay. So not the best scenario for the plant, but best scenario for animal cells. Unless you are like severely dehydrated right now, which I would encourage you to get a glass of water. Otherwise, all your cells in the body should be in an isotonic solution. Okay, your blood should be isotonic with your red cells. So they're happy. Any questions so far? This is the easiest case to understand of the three. So if you have questions, please ask. All right, number 2 here. Number 2. Speaking of dehydration, the second scenario is hypertonic solution. Hypertonic solution. In a hypertonic solution, okay, again, we're going to draw before, and we're going to draw after. We have our animal cell. And we have our plant cell. And in this case, there will be more solute outside than inside. And you can do a lot more dots to help you see it. So concentration of solution is greater than concentration of the cytoplasm. Greater than. Now take a moment to think about this. Don't just instinctively answer. Which way will water tend to move in this case? Out of the cell or into the cell? Out, right? Towards the more salty side, right? Okay. Does that mean no water is coming in? No, they are coming in, but you just have more leaving than coming in. Okay, so like you might have some water come in, but lots of it will be leaving because it's saltier on the outside. Right? So I'm just going to use the same wording here. What did I say? Rate of water going into the cell. E, it's less than rate of water leaving the cell. Okay. So net water movement is out of the cell. We have our analogy here with the bucket. And we're going to be what would be the correct analogy here? Do I turn the tap on more or do I make a bigger hole? Do I turn on the tap more or do I make a bigger hole to represent this situation? Yeah, bigger hole. Okay, so water is coming in, but now I have like a really big hole at the bottom, and it's just like leaking all over the place. So what's going to happen to the water level? It's going to go down, right? Okay. So similarly, because we have more water leaving the cell than coming in, cell volume decreases. So afterwards, the animal cell will shrink, will shrivel up. We have a fancy name for this. Plasmolysis. Shrinks. And the plant will also shrivel up, okay? I mean, the cell wall is still going to be there, but then the cell is going to shrivel up on the inside. This is the cell wall. For animal cell, they are not doing great, but it's not the worst case. Okay. This is like, again, like meh, I'll live. Yeah, I'll get through this. As soon as you drink some water, I'll be okay. For the plant, that fix. Right?
Oh.
This is like when you forget to water your plants for a couple of days, maybe a week or so. They really like you can see the leaves all shrivel up and gonna go down. And if you don't water it anytime soon, they will dry up and the leaves fall off. Okay. You have a place in the brain called the hypothalamus. When you are dehydrated, the blood causes those brain cells to shrink, and that creates the feeling of thirst. Yeah, so when you feel thirsty, it's because of the shrinkage of those cells in your brain. And that takes us to the final case, which is hypotonic. And I want you to write a really big O here. Okay, hypotonic solution. So in the hypotonic solution, let's do our before and after again. Animal cell. Plant cell. And you probably can guess what it's gonna look like here. You're gonna have a lot of solute on the inside, high concentration, and low concentration on the outside. Is less than the concentration of the cytoplasm. Give you a moment to catch up. Okay, well, which way will water go in this case? Into or out of? Into, right? This is more stuff on the inside. And so you have a lot of water coming in. You might have some leaving. And so the rate of water entering the cell, entering the cell is greater than the rate of water leaving the cell. If the bucket situation helps you, you can draw it again. This time, though, we are turning on the tap to its fullest. Okay, and the water is leaking. But we definitely have more water coming in than leaving. So the water level will rise. And eventually, it's going to overflow. Okay. So net water movement into the cell. Cell volume increases. So the cell is going to get really, really, really big. If it's an animal cell, it will fill up and then it will pop. So this is called lysis. It's going to burst. And it's not going to be happy because it's going to be dead. What about the plant cells? Do you expect the plant cells to burst? Why not? What does a plant cells have that we don't have? That's right. So the cell wall will protect the plant cell, and it will basically fill up, and it will be like really, really plump. Right? It's a lot of pressure building inside, but it loves it. Okay. So there's a lot of pressure pushing on. These arrows represent pressure. Okay. And then we say it is turgid. It allows the plant to basically stand up all this water pressure is going to allow the plant to push up against gravity, open up the leaves, and collect as much light as possible. So they love it. Okay. Are we together? So hypotonic, remember the big O, it tells you the cell gets really big and it's gonna pop. All right. One last story before we go home. Do you guys know the Wii? I mean, it's like really old now, but do you guys remember the Wii? Yeah, it's the video game console, right? Okay. So when it first came out, I don't know, like over 10 years ago, I think, there was a contest in the US. This is true. You can Google it if you don't believe me. It's called Hold Your Wii for a Wii. Okay, the contest name. Right. So as the name implies, contestants had to drink as much water as they could, and they have to hold and not go to the bathroom. And whoever can hold it for the longest, they will win a free video game console the week. Okay. So this woman, she won. Okay? She was able to drink the most and hold it, and she won the contest and bring home the video game console. But she died hours after getting home. Okay, so why? Based on what we learned, why does drinking so much water cause you to die?
So,
That's right. Drinking a lot of water basically dilutes your blood substantially. It will cause the blood to become hypotonic. Okay? And all your red cells are going to swell up and burst. And without red cells, you cannot transport oxygen and you die. Okay, so this is called water toxicity. Too much water in a short period of time is actually dangerous. That's why after strenuous exercise, people usually drink like sport drinks, right? Okay, the sugar, the electrolytes, that's what helps rehydrate you without changing your tonicity too much. Okay, it maintains the right balance. So in this picture, I'm almost done. Okay, just hold on, guys. In this picture, these three pictures, this is, what scenario is this? The isotonic, right? Isotonic. How about this one? Do you think this is hyper or hypo?
hyper.
Hyper. It all shrivel up, right? But it's okay. As soon as you drink water, you'll be fine. This is like raisin. The grapes, if you take away all the water, they shrivel up, right? Shrinks. And this is hypotonic. Okay. That's it for today. Friday, from the looks of things, I probably will only need about 45 minutes of your time. Okay. So please come to class online using the link here. Yeah, Friday, 8:30. Okay. Come if you can. If you can't, that's fine. Watch the recordings. No class next Monday, guys. Okay. Don't come.